Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations, a podcast by Practical E-Commerce.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations by Practical E-Commerce. My name is Kerry Murdoch. Without U.S. Robotics, the early day modem manufacturer, there arguably would not be a World Wide Web. The co-founder of U.S. Robotics, Cowell, joins us today to discuss that company, the early day internet, and his current entrepreneurial and civic interest. Well, Casey, thank you for your time today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I'm going to start our conversation with a column that I read earlier this year by the longtime technology journalist Walt Mossberg, who used to be, of course, with the Wall Street Journal. And in this column, it was really interesting. Mossberg cited 7 products that he said changed everything. And by changed everything, he was referring to enabled the World Wide Web, enabled AOL, etc. Without these 7 products, Walt Mossberg said that there would be no World Wide Web as we know it today. 2 of those products were from a company that you were the CEO and co-founder of, U.S. Robotics. And my first question for you today is, what was a young man thinking in 1976 to get into the modem business?
Well, yeah, it's a long story. What happened was public switch telephone network got essentially upgraded end-to-end to packet switching, which meant that you could go faster and it was easier to call many more remote locations or to connect disparate users more easily. And at the same time, fired up mainly by Digital Equipment Corporation, time-sharing got really adopted broadly, especially at universities and companies. And with time-sharing, you could have a term. It used to be that to access a computer, you had to have a computer terminal or a punched card reader in a room right next to the computer, and you were right there next to your IBM mainframe or whatever. With time-sharing, they installed modems at the computer center, and you could use a thing called a modem, stood for modulator, demodulator, and you could connect a computer terminal from a remote site and call into that mainframe or mini computer, in the case of DEC, over the public switch network. And in the mid-'70s, that was really starting to take off. And there was also the early beginnings of the small computer or home computer marketplace. It's also a time in 1976 when the MITS Altair and a number of other homebrew computers were getting introduced, that Ken Olsen, the founder and CEO of DEC, made the famous quote, "Why would anyone ever need a computer in their home?" So, that tells you kind of the state of things around the mid-'70s. We set out to build a keyboard that had a built-in acoustic coupler, which is one of those things that had rubber cups on it. You made a phone call, got a high-pitched tone, and you put the telephone handset into the rubber cups, and you communicated audibly through audio with this remote computer with tones. And we set out to build a keyboard with a built-in acoustic coupler, and it would use alligator clips to connect to your television antenna, and you turn to channel 3 or 4, and you'd get a 16 by 48 column display. It would be a cheap remote terminal that we'd sell to students, a big market. And we started with $200 cash and a lot of energy. I can remember thinking one day that our 3 a.m. business plan every day was to still be in business at noon. It was really scramble time. And so we did that, and we were always out of money, so we figured out how to do the modem, so we built that. We got the keyboard to work, but we couldn't afford to produce that part of it. So we just went to market with the modems. And that started to take off, and really the first 10 years, people were really buying computer terminals and using them to connect to large and mid-sized remote computers in university settings and business, and some home computer settings. So the Apple was out, and the Apple II was very successful, and in 1981, IBM introduced the IBM PC, and that really legitimized the small or personal computer marketplace and saw it start to be accepted as a business tool. And still, though, largely they were used for accessing specific remote computers, and for mainly business purposes and academic purposes. And the one thing I'll throw in there, too, is I think it was 1983 is when MCI mail was brought out as a commercial product by MCI. And in those days with email, you could only, you were captive within the email system that you subscribed to. So MCI mail users could send emails to other MCI mail users. And it was burdensome to attach any kind of a file, et cetera, unlike what we do today. So, that was one of the first really democratizing driving forces for the use of the Internet, because this all predates the World Wide Web with embedded HTML, et cetera, which was much later, fledgling 10,000 users in 1991, growing to 3.5 billion today.
Were you a student at the University of Chicago when you started U.S. Robotics?
Yes, I was out and graduated in 1975, went to graduate school at the University of Rochester for 1 year in a PhD program, and left that to move back to Chicago and start a business with people I knew from college there. And off we went. We had $200 cash, so we were legitimately a true startup. And we got by on sheer energy. Everybody just worked constantly. And it's funny, today they talk about, in this do-it-yourself world, about makerspace, where you can go into places and have electronics, machine tools, et cetera, and people will show you how to do things. And experts will help you do it when you want to try to build something, make a company, et cetera. And really for us, we just drove everywhere, pounded on doors, asked questions, and I would have to say that the city of Chicago was our makerspace. We snuck into, at night, the graduate student shop at the Enrico Fermi Institute at the University of Chicago, and they had a machine tool center there that we learned how to use and make things, and learned electronics. We learned how to make a modem from reading Don Lancaster's TV typewriter cookbook. And the Lancaster is still around, I think, in the hills around Scottsdale or in Arizona, and he wrote a series of... He was one of the early guys who explained how electronics worked. And the early Byte magazines that came out, I think the first edition of Byte was in 77, 76, and right in there. And it was like 300 pages, and Lancaster may have had articles in it, but he wrote a lot of articles that explained to the early industry participants how to make things. And a tremendous interactive, driven community grew up as the cost came down for parts, and things became more programming oriented. More and more people participated, and all these fantastic products came out of it.
So you've moved back. You've launched this company. What was your business model?
Our business model was a disaster. We had no idea what we were doing at the start. We had
Sounds familiar.
In making these products, we made them. I learned how to printed circuit boards, etch them in ferric chloride, drill them out with a hand drill, assemble the parts, vacuum form a plastic case, et cetera, et cetera. And our parts cost on just the raw materials at our first product was, I think, $72, and we advertised it for $105. And the nearest competitor was well over $700, and we would have gotten killed, but we were never able to quite bring it to market. So we reorganized and it took us another year to go back at it after our initial failure, and off we went. Now, the real business plan was that a couple of us were convinced at that youthful moment in time that through artificial intelligence we would accomplish immortality. Man would achieve immortality, and we thought that we would possibly just miss the window. So the mission, forget the business plan, the mission we were on was to make hundreds of billions of dollars of profit, fund artificial intelligence research, and try to move that horizon in a little bit so we'd make the cut on immortality. And we thought if we could get everyone in the world to think about this and focus on it, it would happen. And so the mission of U.S. Robotics was to make that happen. And in our very first ad in Byte magazine, February 1977, lower left corner, you can see the capital letters AIOD. And that was the start of our mission, artificial intelligence or die. And off we went. It didn't last long. Yeah, it didn't last long because the realities of surviving, let alone making hundreds of billions of dollars of profit, set in, and we're working constantly, and more practical measures came to be. But it was we were driven on a mission, and being on a mission is great because it transcends your own life, and it makes you get fired up and go after the future in a big way. And that's what we were good at.
I should say on the list that I referred to earlier from Mossberg, I think I mentioned that there were actually two products on that list. One was your U.S. Robotics Sportster modem, and the other was the Palm Trio, a company that you guys acquired. That was in the late 90s. Is that right?
Yeah, 94, 95. So the Sportster, the thing that was great about all of our products is we, unlike all of our competitors, figured out how to build the engine or the data pump ourselves using off-the-shelf digital signal processors. And we were good at math, and we were just good at doing that. And as a result, our products, we got to market sooner. They were so we could upgrade them. They cost less, and they were more reliable. And it was easy to get leverage or economies of scale because we used the same engine in a whole broad and ever-expanding array of products that functioned on both ends of the telephone call. On the remote client ends, with the Sportster and other remote desktop and internal modems, and also on the answer end. So we sold big rack-mounted floor-to-ceiling chassis products that connected America Online, Prodigy, IBM Global Networks, CompuServe, et cetera, we had the lion's share of market share for that side. So we made sure that when you had our product on both ends of the call, it connected faster, it had better error correction, it operated faster, and we priced them aggressively. So I think we really did help to grow the market. And, that the Sportster plus our products on the answer side enabled the internet to happen at the time when people wanted to go faster and it was really starting to take off. So we weren't the cause of it, but we helped push it along, and lots of other companies did too, and that was terrific. It was really exciting times. As part of that, we were looking for more products on the client side and just continued to establish our market position. And the Palm Pilot was a beautiful such product. And in the early 90s, Apple had brought out the Newton, which was their basically personal handheld organizer. And it didn't go well, we'll leave it at that, and it kind of killed the category. And as a result, with Jeff Hawkins and Donna Dubinsky, had a concept from Hawkins, brilliant guy, had done in college even, where he invented or created the graffiti character set. He had this great, fantastic idea for this handheld organizer that really did stuff. Most of the products to date weren't very good. The computer industry, for the most part, when they did handheld organizers, it was like the HP 95 or 100 LX or the Casio Boss. It was a chipboard, and in their imagination, looking forward, all they did was PC and shrink it down to handheld size. And there was no real beauty to the implementation. And Hawk came up with this fantastic product, but because of what happened with the Newton, it was hard for them to get it funded. They go another round. They had it as a wood block prototype, and so we talked with them and said we weren't interested in funding, but with the biggest distribution, the biggest manufacturing in the world for products like that, why don't they come with us and we'll finish the product and take it to market? And they was an absolutely blockbuster, fabulous product and experience.
Well, you sold, as I understand it, in the 97, I think it was, 3Com purchased. Revenue was up to $2 billion. That's incredible from a group of young entrepreneurs. So that's an incredible story. That's almost 20 years ago. Fast forward now to 2016. What are your interests now?
Well, I'm a private investor in a wide range of companies in many industries, and some definitely in technology. And I'm very involved in civic and community where in Traverse City, Michigan. And I've always liked smaller communities, and so I've been in this area for a long time, since 1991. And I just feel that, that I can interact more with participants in the community. There's more of a sense of community, and I get a lot more out of it. And these days, with the internet and the web, of course, you can pretty much, for many people, you really can be a virtual participant. You can live any place you want to, and the Traverse City area for me is fabulous because it's smaller. There's a lot of really bright people here. It's easy to get in and out of here if you have to travel, and I like the outdoors a lot, and it's fabulous for that. So I focus on a lot of civic activities in this area and in the Midwest, and really, the key to long-term vibrancy and viability for communities, smart, really highly productive people create a lot of value and export it out of their community. And that's what we're trying to work on here. And we're making a lot of progress. It's great. We have a local tech group that gets together. We have just over 600 around there. And that just really continues to build a community of interest in a small area where there's now sort of an intense focus on this kind of thing.
So let's expand on that just for a sec. You and I met because I recently moved to Traverse City, and I had the pleasure of meeting you. And it's really interesting what you're doing with this group and your activities and your leadership in this area. And it's a group of technology entrepreneurs and executives such as yourself, highly educated workforce here. Someone listening to this, that perhaps they're in a big city, perhaps they're a cloud employee, perhaps they have a company that they would like to relocate. Talk just for a sec about the attraction of doing, perhaps what you did, which is relocating from Chicago to Traverse City or from New York or LA or wherever. Why should someone do that?
The reason, too, is if you like living in a smaller community where you can be more plugged into the community. And, it's less expensive, but it's more rewarding, and at least for me. If it's not for everyone, but it is for me. The costs of living in big cities today are high, but it's not just the financial cost, it's the cost of what it takes to live. Transportation is slow, things cost a lot, things take time. And in a smaller community, you can get outside and focus on what you want to focus on, a lot of times, especially with families, more easily. At least that's my view. And you can now, with the web, as we were saying, you can participate virtually in any sort of activity or organization. So you can be where you want to be. So, it's really something to think about. Where do I really want to be based? And for sure, I think someone starting, you want to be involved in and want to live in a tech community of some kind. Want to engage with other people face to face. I mean, doing things with the web is great, but a lot of times there's just no substitute for face to face interaction. You get energy out of it. The human body has evolved. Mankind has evolved physically to really be engaged through face to face contact. You just sense things about the other person. I think you get a little more out of it. So being live in a community that can be supportive is great, and I think you can find that in a lot of small communities because bright people who create value, in many cases, decide that they would rather live in a smaller area rather than a big city. So that's what Traverse City is all about.
So for someone listening to this and they're interested in learning about the community that here in Traverse City, how do they do that? How do they learn more? How do they investigate the lifestyle here in Traverse City?
Send me an email, Cowell, CASEYCOWELL @gmail.com, and just reference practical e-commerce.
So that's just Casey Cowell. That's CASEYCOWELL @gmail.com.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else that we've missed?
We've covered it all. On the e-commerce front, I invest in things here and there, and I was just going to add, and I'm really interested in personally are brands. And there was one example I was going to throw out, which is somebody in our area named Josh Kent, who started a company called Sun Frog Shirt. And I don't know if you've spoken with him, but here's an example of someone who built, as far as I can tell, in a few years with very little capital, the largest supplier of custom one-off T-shirt in the world. And it shows you and he owns his brand, so he controls how it goes to market completely. And it just shows you with the power of the web what can be done anywhere. Because if it's done up in northern Michigan of all things, it just shows you with the power of the web, as everybody knows. But it's fun to see confirming examples. And so I would just throw out there that I kind of think personally brands are where it's at. That's what I am looking at. But it can be done. It happens every day. And it's really fun. So I encourage everybody to go after it if they want to.
What was that company again? I actually haven't met that gentleman. I've heard of him. What was the company? I didn't catch it.
It's called Sun Frog Shirts.
Sun Frog Shirt.
Yep, Sun Frog Shirts. Sun like the rising.
Sun Frog.
Yep, and it's they're in Gaylord, I think, and with a bunch of stuff in Traverse City. But I believe, it's an interesting program, but call him up and have him talk about it, because then you'll get it right from the horse's mouth.
Okay, well, thanks for the tip.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I want to thank you so much, Casey. And for purposes of our listeners, we've been visiting with Casey Cowell. Casey is the pioneering founder of U.S. Robotics and later acquired Palm Pilot, the Palm Corporation, and he now lives in northern Michigan. We've talked about Traverse City, Michigan. And Casey Cowell, I want to thank you for your time today.
My pleasure. I'm available anytime. Thank you so much.